Anyways, so LPL versus LCK best of fives, history in the last 5 years. Didn't expect that much anger here. The starting point, season 8 was picked as to show the trend in recent history since the change point, more like my share prices have been rising up only since August, I hope, but not to deny the LCK dominance before the turning point. I will put the results from 3 to 7 here as well. Dude, number one, like there's a very obvious reason why you should count season 8 onwards and up through season 7. There's a very obvious point that it seems like all LCK fans ignore, which was that in season 8 they removed a ton of vision from the game. Like you used to be able to play Tracker's Knife. Like season 7 there was like no kills. It was just junglers had Tracker's Knife, bottom lane was enchanters with Ardent Sensor, and you had 100% knowledge essentially of everything that happened in the game. You never had to make any decisions that with imperfect information. So in season 8 the game changed fundamentally. Riot wanted more action to be in the game. They wanted more kills. They were tired of these like 8 kill 9 kill games going to like 45 minutes. So in season 8 Riot decided to change the way vision works so that there's going to be more imperfect information in the game. There's going to be more situations that you're going to have to go into without perfect knowledge of where everyone is, right? So the dominance of Korea and the dominance of China can be seen through that lens of when there's more information in the game, Korea makes really solid decisions. I mean, if you watch any LCK compared to LPL, you can tell just from watching the games that LCK games are slower paced, right? They don't like going for flips. They don't like, you know, risking things unnecessarily. If they don't think that a fight is guaranteed or close to guaranteed, they don't want to go for it, right? And then when you look at LPL will take a lot more fights. They play a much more loose, aggressive style, if you want to use a poker term for it, where they're willing to take fights that have like maybe like 55% chance to win, where even if they lose it, they know that they're not going to lose so much in the game that they're going to completely lose the game. You see JDG do this a lot. If you watch how JDG plays against Dom1, they'll take a lot of fights that are like pretty flippy. And especially when behind, I think LPL takes a lot more aggressive fights. They kind of view it as like, if the game's already lost, might as well just try something because we're probably going to lose anyway. Where I feel like LCK teams are much more like reserved with the way that they try to opt into fights with specific power spikes. They're like, no, like we're not going to fight at all until we have 3 core on our AD carry, like we have void staff on our mid laner, you know, top laner has like these 2 items, we have a death stance, like whatever, you know, they always try to make sure that they're taking fights at like specific times. So I think that this is actually a really easy way to break it down. But obviously because of like the numbers, people get really upset. They're like 1-8, but that's like, but if you look all time, it's not 1-8. All right, man. You got it. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is probably the closest we've seen between LPL and LCK. Like the teams actually look pretty close this year. We'll have to see how LPL teams like are like how they feel physically going into the games, because obviously EDG now has COVID. RNG had COVID pretty badly last week. You could see on the player cams the players are sick, and obviously with like the lockdowns that were happening in China, like not many LPL players had COVID previously, whereas I think that a lot of like LCK players ended up getting COVID around spring. Like spring was just, everyone was getting COVID in spring. So yeah, this is like a time where people that haven't had COVID yet are just getting it at this tournament. So obviously Yagao has COVID today. EDG got COVID after their matches in Group A. Apparently they haven't been able to scrim as many days as they wanted to. Viper and Mako have it the worst, so that's a little bit unlucky. And then RNG has, obviously all 5 members got it and they're recovering, so we'll see. All right, so anyways, this is the breakdown of LPL versus LCK, which will be more relevant tomorrow because obviously you have RNG versus T1, which people are thinking that T1's just going to completely shit on them. I think it's going to be a good best of 5 provided that RNG like is healthy, physically healthy. MSI RNG beat Kingzone 3-1. 2018 Worlds IG beat KT 3-2. This was like probably the real world finals in quarterfinals, and this is why like I really hate discussions about like region strength outside of the team that actually wins at Worlds, because things like this could happen. And for KT was actually the first seed, so IG ended up losing to Fnatic in group stage, so they ended up being the 2nd seed from their group, which means that KT had to play against IG in the first round. Now technically NA placed higher than Korea at Worlds this year. This is the year where Cloud9 made it to semis, which is the best performance. It's the only best of 5 in bracket stage that NA has ever won. They've only made semis 1 time after season 1. Season 1 doesn't really count, but like the idea that Cloud9 was a better team than KT in 2018 is just a joke. Clearly not. Korea and China were still extremely strong at this point. And whoever won this best of 5 was probably just going to win the whole tournament. Okay, 2019 Worlds, you have IG versus Griffin 3-1. I remember this series. So this was the series where Chovy was just like playing tank mids the entire time versus IG. Didn't look good. Griffin ended up going out. I mean, this was a pretty hard 3-1. This series never really felt close. Mid-season championship. No one has watched this in the history of the West. There's like 2 people that have watched it in the history of the West, but China was like super dominant at the mid-season championship. They were doing extremely well. I think it's 4 teams from China, 4 teams from Korea. There was 3 Chinese teams that got out of group stage, and yeah, they ended up 3-0ing. All right, Damwon versus Suning. This is when Damwon was at their absolute peak. 3-1. Suning was not really supposed to be in that final, to be honest. Most people thought that JDG and top esports ended up choking. That's why Damwon was playing Suning instead of TES or JDG, which were the 2 best teams in the region by far. It was kind of similar to this year, right? Where like top esports and JDG were, I mean, if you go over the course of the entire year, probably the 2 strongest teams in general. And like, I mean, RNG obviously peaked really high in spring, but then in summer they fell off quite a bit. Didn't even make double limb. But it was a similar thing where Suning was not expected to be there. Damwon ended up making pretty quick work of them. There was that like bin pentakill on Fiora, but yeah, they were really outmatched. RNG versus Damwon, MSI 3-2. We saw that. EDG versus Genji. Watch this one. EDG 3-2. 2021 Worlds, EDG versus Damwon, EDG 3-2, and RNG versus T1, RNG 3-2. So, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of really close best of 5s recently. I mean, if you just look at 2021 Worlds, yeah, if you just look at the last 4 that they've played between LPL and LCK, even though LPL has won 4-0 in those last 4, like all of them are 3-2. So it seems like generally when the teams are closely skilled, then LPL ends up winning, which is making me think maybe I should go this, because I think that these are pretty close matchups. RNG versus T1 should be close. All right, we'll change it. We'll go with history. Will this be the fastest BO3, or is JDG a slow team? I mean, JDG can be a fast team, but I mean, sometimes they have int games. The thing about JDG is that like, even if they have int games, they'll normally end up pulling out those int games. Like if they make mistakes, they don't give up, which I think is the scariest part about JDG as a team. I think that that's the thing that people really underestimate. People are like, oh, but JDG is not that clean. Oh, they have moments where they're beatable. The problem with playing against JDG in a best of 5 is that you never get like easy wins. You're never going to get that like game 1 win where you just completely smash them. I mean, generally, I haven't seen it. You get these game 1 wins where you're just going to completely smash them in every facet. They're not going to be able to get like any team fight wins. They're going to sweat you out like for all of these games. They're going to grind it out versus you guys. And that's going to be, that's tough for a lot of teams to deal with. It's hard to play a best of 5 when every single game is competitive. I remember watching the top esports versus JDG best of 5 in semifinals of summer this year. It was like about 2 months ago. And man, that game, it was tiring to watch. Like seeing that many games that were long games with that many team fights that were close into the end, that was tiring to watch. Like game 4, game 5, I was like, bro, can JDG just FF already, bro? I don't want to watch anymore, man. I'm getting tired from this. So it is what it is.